Yeah, just a little story I got here. It was whenever I was a little kid or young kid. My mother was always concerned about me working. She always wanted me to work. She grew up with that. You know, show up, work hard, do all that kind of stuff. Anyway, the summer I turned 14. She got me a job at an ice house, working over there, bagging ice, making ice, doing the whole schmear. And I got over there, and it was just hectic. Early in the morning, I'm talking about early in the morning. You had to be there at 6 o'clock, and it was cold. It was wet. All them contractors would come in there and they'd get that block ice. They wanted that block ice so they could put it in their coolers and their water jugs so they could, have something cold to drink because in the summertime in Texas, it gets hot. And you need that cold water to keep you going. Anyway, I was over there working at the ice house, and I couldn't stand it. It was horrible. So one day I was supposed to be in there bagging ice. I went outside to smoke a cigarette, warm up. Well, the boss caught me out there, and he said, "What are you doing out here?" And I said, "Well, I'm smoking a cigarette, taking a break." He said, "It's not break time." I said, "I know, but I just don't particularly like this." He said, "Well, I could tell that you don't like this kind of work, do you?" I said, "No, I don't like this kind of work." He said, "Well, I'm going to go ahead and fire you because you're not working out here." I said, "That suits me just fine." So I went home and I told my mother I got fired. Oh my God, you'd think I murdered somebody. She was livid. She went off on me for about 15, 20 minutes. You're going to be a bum. You're worthless. You're not going to be able to hold a job. You're not going to be able to support yourself. I don't know what you're going to do. I said, "Well, Mom, just don't worry about it. Everything's going to work out." So I went back down to the pool hall where I've been hanging out, shooting pool, playing foosball, doing that kind of thing during the day was what I wanted to do. I don't know why I had to go to work at 14. But anyway, while I was down there, I got a line on a job. And some guys that were working down the road there, they were working at Broadview trailers. They were Broadview Steel and Broadview trailers. They was building cotton trailers. And they looked at me, and I was pretty big for 14. They said, "You can come down there and go to work down there." And I said, "Okay, I'll go." So I go down there, and they started me out at $1.85 an hour. My mother got me that job at the ice house. I was making $1.65 minimum wage. So I already got a 20 cent raise by going and getting a different job. I worked down there about 2 or 3 weeks, and they liked me. I liked it. I liked them. I liked to work. They said, "Tom, we need some more welders." And I said, "Well, I'm not a welder." They said, "Well, we'll teach you how." I said, "Well, whatever. I'm willing to learn. No big deal. Just teach me how." So I picked it up. Didn't take 2 or 3 days. They taught me how to weld. Good enough to weld on them old cotton trailers. And so I got a job as a welder, and then my next paycheck I got a raise at $2.50 an hour. And they said, "Yeah, well, that's the minimum we pay welders is $2.50 an hour." And I said, "Well, okay, that's cool." I didn't think much about it because this is the first job I ever had, and it just didn't seem like a whole lot of money to me. But I went home and I told my mother, I said, "Well, Mama, I got a raise. They taught me how to weld up there, and they gave me a raise." And she said, "Oh, Tom, I'm so proud of you. You're doing so good over there." And I said, "Yeah, I like building trailers. I like that steel and cutting it and welding it together. I like that kind of work." She said, "Well, that's great." I said, "Yeah, and I got a raise. I'm making $2.50 an hour." She said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I'm making $2.50 an hour now." And she said, "Well, that's just fine." And then a few minutes later, I heard her. She was in her bedroom. She was crying. I went in there and I said, "Mom, what's the matter? Why are you crying?" She said, "Tom, I've been working at my job for 8 years, and I make $2 an hour. And you've been working for 2 months or not even 6 weeks, and you're making $2.50 an hour. It's just not freaking fair. I said, well, why? What is the difference? And she said, men just get paid more money than women in this economy that we live in. And that was the first time I realized that, there is equality. There's economic equality in this world. And it had nothing to do with the color of her skin or her religion or anything like that. It was just simply because she was a woman and she worked inside in an air-conditioned office. She was a parts manager for Clark Equipment. She's been there 8 years, and she's making $2 an hour. That was an eye-opening day for me. Anyway, just another old memory I thought I'd share with y'all.